Your eyes and your vision are under attack. Damaging blue light from the sun, your phone, your computer, your tablet, even light bulbs and car headlights is constantly bombarding you. The good news is our eyes actually already have a line of defense to counter the effects of blue light. This defense is made up of 3 pigments called carotenoids. MacuHealth with Micromicelle, the only supplement with the exclusive patent on all 3 macular carotenoids and Micromicelle technology.
Do your patients know what presbyopia is?
There are people who are afraid of the press.
Have you talked to your patients about multifocal contact lenses?
I've heard the bifocal, but not multifocal.
Exactly, not multifocal.
Do you need help with your multifocal strategy? Learn more at the conclusion of this episode. With more screen usage and indoor time, myopia, also known as nearsightedness, is increasing and getting worse in children. Now, certified eye doctors can prescribe MiSight One Day, the first and only FDA-approved soft contact lens to slow myopia progression in age-appropriate children. Visit CooperVision.com to find a Brilliant Futures certified eye doctor near you. Good morning, I'm Dr. Kerry Gelb, and welcome to Wellness 1280 on Open Your Eyes Radio. Please listen as I discuss the newest information in the world of health, nutrition, and sports every Saturday morning, 6 a.m. Central Time on AM 1280 The Patriot. Also, please share your thoughts by emailing me at drkerrygelb@gmail.com. That's drkerrygelb@gmail.com. And visit my new website, wellness1280.com, where we have all guest links, Wellness 1280 info, and previous shows. Wellness is taking over the Patriot Airways for the next hour. Sit back and enjoy my interview with professional baseball player Brian McKenna. Today's guest is professional baseball pitcher Brian McKenna, who has played at many levels, including AAA, independent leagues, and international leagues. Becoming a professional athlete requires relentless hard work, discipline, overcoming injuries, and dedication. Brian will share valuable insights about his journey and offering pitching tips to help listeners and viewers elevate their game. Brian, I want to thank you for joining me today on Open Your Eyes Radio and podcast with Dr. Kerry Gelb.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have a conversation with you. I'm looking forward to it.
Brian, I've known you for a while, and I always respected you. When you had an injury, you work with the kids, and now you're back to playing professional baseball. You're playing in Venezuela. Tell us what it's like to play in the Venezuela Baseball League.
Oh, man, it's not like anything I've experienced so far, that's for sure. But, I mean, the baseball is really, really good. It's definitely the highest level that I've played at. One of the advantages of like a league like this, a winter league, is that since it's not during the same season as the United States' major leagues and the minor leagues, that we're able to, guys that aren't in affiliated ball, like myself, are able to play against guys that are in the major leagues in AAA and AA are currently there. So, I mean, it's a different opportunity and it's exciting. I mean, the fans are super into it. I mean, there's just a level of pride that's being played with down here that you don't see too often in the States.
And you play with professional baseball players that are in the major leagues. Can you tell the audience how much is the difference, what is the difference between an MLB player, a AAA player, a AA player? Is there that much of a difference between the levels and the players?
From just a strict talent perspective, I would say no, but from a consistency of kind of showing that talent, then yes, the same 95 miles an hour or even 100 miles an hour, that you see in rookie ball or A ball or AA is the same, 100 miles an hour that you'd see in the big leagues. The difference is their ability to locate, their consistency with that pitch. And then their secondary and tertiary offerings are just way different. And as far as the hitters, they're not gonna make it. They're not gonna miss as many mistakes as a younger, less experienced hitter can. But I mean, as far as having the same, they hit the ball 450 feet, 400 feet at every level. There's big, strong guys at every level, but it's just really the adaptability and the consistency that I've seen is the biggest thing that changes from level to level.
And how about the mindset that a professional baseball player has? What's the difference in the amount of nervousness they get? And at that level, even at your level playing with Major League Baseball players, do Major League Baseball players still get nervous? And do you get nervous playing against Major League Baseball players? I mean, you've been a AAA baseball player. So how do you manage? And if you do, how do you manage the nerves to make it a positive thing?
I think it's normal. I think that when anybody starts out, their nerves are going to be a little bit higher. And then as you go, um, you get more accustomed to it, more relaxed in your routine or just the environment. So I think it's like anything else, experience makes you, and being experienced in what you're doing and also able to do it, confidence in yourself kind of alleviates a lot of that nervousness. Maybe the first time you go out there and you're in front of 20,000 people and you're facing a guy that just hit, 25, 30 homers in the big leagues this past year, you're, maybe weary or a little cautious or kind of second guessing yourself, especially maybe someone like me in my position who I haven't been at that level. But once you do it a couple times, it really kind of goes away now. You're looking forward to those opportunities to more of like prove yourself, especially for me. Uh, as far as the major league guys, honestly, the higher levels you go up, the less they seem to be nervous and the more fun that they seem to be having. And I don't want to say they don't take it as serious because I know that they do, but it doesn't show it as much, in double A and triple A, the weight room is really littered with a lot of guys, doing like extensive routines, extensive lifts before and after the games. And I've seen that at the higher level players, kind of they focus more on just playing the game and they're not so entrenched in these things that are outside of the game. They're just very concerned with how they play. And maybe that helps. I don't know. They just seem to have a much more looseness about the game. They're smiling, they're joking with guys on the other team. They're talking with like waving at fans. So maybe that could also be the environment down here because they're also we're in the Venezuelan league, so they're all Venezuelan. They all have known each other for a long time. But you see a lot of joking around with guys on the other team. I mean, they take it seriously, but at the same time, they're having a lot of fun. I've seen more serious games at when I was coaching 14U than I've seen out here. Guys are easy to kind of roll with the punches and have a laugh with the guy, when they get to first base. It's not, so like I gotta beat this guy, but the will to win and compete is definitely there, but I think there's more of a middle ground of having fun the higher you go up.
And you've been able to throw as high as 97, maybe 98, 94 to 97, 98. Is that something that you think you were born with, or is that something that you were able to train yourself to be able to do?
Well, I've actually had this conversation with a lot of people. Um, I think that it's it's not so like cut and dry. I think that you can train an individual athlete to get to a certain point with velocity or anything really, strength training or but in this case velocity. But it's really capped out at their genetic potential. Not everyone has the genetic ability to or the fast, the fast twitch muscle fibers to throw the ball 100 miles an hour. For me, I would say that I think that any, capable bodied, healthy male adult could probably be trained to throw the ball 85, 85 to 90 miles an hour with a really, really consistent routine and, starting at a young enough age because specifically in throwing, there's this thing called humeral retroversion that happens as your bones are developing that your humerus will actually twist into the shoulder socket to facilitate this external rotation. And if you don't start that adaptation at a young enough age, I think they've shown that you won't be able to have the movement capability to really throw the ball at like the 97, 98 mile an hour range. But again, that's probably just a sweeping generalization. But most of the time, they found that when you start young throwing, then it gives you more opportunity to throw the ball harder when you get older. But
And do you
it's
think that at what age you think a kid should start throwing, and how often should they throw?
Oh, well, I think that, you got to get them involved in the throwing. I mean, I don't know if any age is too young. I think that maybe pitching specifically, where the load and the volume and the intensity is super high, maybe they should wait until they're, if I had a kid, I'd probably wait till he was 14 or 15. I heard Roger Clemens didn't have his sons pitch until they were 16. But I think you can start them throwing at any age, but just try to make it so that the volume isn't too much, because that's really where the wear and tear comes from, is from the excessive volume. Throwing isn't inherently dangerous, but when you make a kid that's not fully developed throw 100 pitches 3 times in a week, you're asking for trouble.
How often do you think kids should throw, like a 7, 8, 9-year-old kid? And then how about a junior high school kid and a high school and a high school kid? How often should they throw a baseball, would you say?
Um, well, I guess it depends on the season and their goals. If they're a position player, I mean, I would recommend at least 3 times a week in high school. When they're young, I mean, I'm maybe once a week to start out, and then if they show an interest in it, you can progress them. But it's all about just controlling the volume, especially well, really at any age, even at my level, um, because volume is really where you get hurt. And I think that if you have a kid that's starting out, probably just once a week, if it's literally his first time throwing, once a week, see how his arm adapts. Throwing is a very kind of strenuous process on the whole shoulder and elbow unit, so you just don't want to overdo it. Um, when you're young, you feel like you're invincible. I mean, I threw all the time. I would pitch 100 pitches and then long toss after the game, and you think that you're fine because you're 12 and you just never experienced any sort of arm pain or anything until you do, and then after that, everything is focused on your arm. But I think that just listening to your body. I don't know if there's any one real cut and dry plan to give somebody that's like, okay, if you do this, you won't get hurt, or if you do this, you're going to throw 100. But it's really just about listening to your body and constantly being willing to adjust based on how you feel. If you feel strong, you can do a little bit more. But as a general recommendation, I would say no more than, for a high school kid, no more than 5 times a week throwing. And if you could limit like a high intensity days to 2 or 3, I mean that would be ideal. No more than that, and you want to be able to always give your body time to recover. 7 more is more. That's what I've really learned throughout my whole pitching and throwing career, is that you really have to give your body time to rest. And doing a lot of lifting and other strenuous things for your arm and for your body. Your elbow and shoulder don't know the difference between throwing a baseball and lifting a weight. It's stress in the joint and the muscle, and you just really need to be able to recover from that. And as long as you're adequately recovering in between these high intense sessions, I think that you're going to be in a safe spot. But as a general rule, I would say at least 2 days off a week. When I'm ramping up my off-season program, I usually do like 1 or 2 weeks of throwing 3 times a week, and then 1 or 2 weeks of throwing 4 times a week, and then 1 or 2 weeks of throwing 5 times a week, and then I'll stay at that 5 times a week until the season. Because I mean, unfortunately, in the season you could throw seven. If you don't have an off day, you could be out there throwing 7 days a week. But even in that situation, you would still adapt the intensity. You wouldn't be going 100% the whole time. And it's funny, like the higher you go up, the more you see guys are controlling that volume. And if you go to watch A ball, double A, before the game, if you watch the pitchers throw, you see a lot of guys maybe long tossing and really kind of exerting themselves throwing with their partner. And if you would watch some of these older guys that have been in the major leagues for a while do their pre-throw before the games, you'd wonder if they even did enough to get loose. So it's really about just controlling that volume, and I think that these older guys that have been doing it for a while understand that, and I'm kind of learning a bit from them as well and adapting my own routine to it. So it's interesting. It's not definitely not a one size fits all model, but really just listen to your body and try to make sure that you're recovered well in between those high intense sessions. Because when you're fatigued, your muscles can't absorb the force as well, and that's when you get hurt. That's when the insertions of the joints start to break down, and it's very rarely one throw or one event, unless it's like a really like a traumatic incident, a collision or something like that, that's gonna, rupture the ligament in your throwing arm. It's just kind of that over time, that wear and tear, and then that straw that breaks the camel's back.
Why do you think there's so many more arm injuries with pitchers now than there were 20, 30 years ago? Does anybody have a feel for that?
I think that it's a combination of understanding what creates velocity as far as mechanics. The youth having such a high volume of throwing, and then also just a high volume of games like travel ball, high school ball, rec leagues. There's no shortage of areas where kids can throw, and the thing is if your son or if your good or daughter is good at throwing a baseball, especially at a young age, coaches are gonna use them, and they're gonna use them disproportionately to maybe their how ready they are to throw at that volume, and then also their counterparts, their teammates. I did that. I mean, when I was a kid, I hurt my arm, and it was probably because every team I went on, they wanted me to pitch and catch and play shortstop. So I was just and I had a good arm. So when you throw hard, you always want to throw hard, and especially when you're young and egotistical and competing with your friends and teammates, you're like, okay, check this out. Look what I can do. I could throw it further than you. I could throw it harder than you. And you just are just always operating at that intent. It's just not it's not good. It's just like I said, that volume is really the killer.
In Venezuela, you're playing with a lot of major league players. What's your mindset when you're pitching and an MLB pitch player comes up? Is it different than if it's somebody who never was in the MLB? And who are some of the players that maybe that you pitched against and that you really had to use a specific type of strategy? And what kind of strategy was it?
Luckily, the strategy I get is kind of taken care of for us. Our pitching coach and our scouting department has good information on a lot of the hitters. So we have a good plan of attack, and then luckily, we have a couple catchers that have also played at the major league level, so they are relatively familiar with some of these guys, and um, so a lot of that strategy and stuff I kind of just leave to the catchers. Like I don't like to shake off my catchers a whole lot, especially because I'm in the bullpen. I come in the eighth, ninth inning, and I haven't, I watched the game, but my perception is not nearly as good as the guy that's 1 foot behind the batter, for two or three at bats. So I generally defer to their expertise. But unless I see something, like I look for if guys are late on the fastball, if the guys are able to take a good slider down. Like if I think I executed a slider that broke late from strike to ball and they take it, then I know that they're looking for that pitch, or at least they're waiting long enough to see it. And I believe that makes them susceptible to the fastball. That you can freeze them with that. But as far as mindset with the major league guys, like at first, like we were talking about earlier, I was a little nervous with that, not having that experience. But once you throw one fastball and they swing through it, it's just any other guy that's up there. I mean, you understand that, maybe you can't, if the scouting report says don't miss down and in, don't miss down and in, because there's, more often than not they're gonna tattoo it. But I found that it's exciting, to face those guys because it challenges you and it tries to kind of prove yourself. I mean, we faced, I mean, he hasn't played in a little while, but Yasiel Puig was in this league. He was one of the more intimidating hitters. I mean, Eugenio Suarez, Renato Nunez. We have Itamar Vargas is on our team. He's a starting second baseman for the Nationals. Luis Angel Acuna was our shortstop. He's going to be probably the starting second baseman for the Mets this year. A lot of major league arms too in this league. Let me think about some of the other big leaguers. I mean, he's a little removed, but Alex Amarista, he's playing on the team that we're playing currently. He's the second baseman. He's got 7 or 8 years in the big leagues. This is a lot of guys, but there's really, the mindset doesn't change. You just are aware that you really need to be focused on executing your pitches and not missing, because you find that the better hitters, these guys, these big leaguers, they don't miss mistakes. That's what they're looking to hit. They're not going to hit, if you execute a good pitch on that's going to get people out. I mean, good pitching beats good hitting most of the time. It's just when you miss over the plate and give them an opportunity, those major league hitters, they don't miss that too often. So that's where you get in trouble.
Watching these professional guys, who have you seen from a hitting point of view that you say to yourself, damn, I just can't believe somebody could actually hit this good?
Well, actually, we got this new guy. So after the regular season, you're able to draft up to 3 players from the 3 teams that didn't make it. You can pick, and it's based on how you finish. So we finished first, so we had the first pick. So we picked up Harold Castro from the Leones de Caracas, and he was in the big leagues for 4 or 5 years, and yeah, he hits the ball. I mean, he came in and he was he won MVP in the league, and it was crazy. Like him hitting in the first couple of rounds of the round robin. I think he went off his front foot, like one hand hit a homer to center, and like stuff like that. And then I actually faced him in the season. I only faced him once, but he took a first pitch fastball, and so I thought, okay, I could throw another one. And the first one was in. He took it. Looked like he didn't really see it. And then I threw the next pitch away, and he pulled a double off the wall, in right center. And I was like, wow, okay, I gotta keep that one in the memory bank. I'm glad he's on our team. But there's a lot of guys that you just wonder, like, I don't know how they can hit. I mean, there's guys throwing 100 in this league. There was a lefty on the team we played the other day throwing 102.
We're up against the break. I'm speaking with pitcher Brian McKenna. This is Dr. Kerry Gelb for Open Your Eyes Radio. We'll be back after the break.
MacuHealth, your science-born and tested solutions for visual performance, macular degeneration, and dry eye syndrome. New products coming soon. Embrace the science. We're
back with professional pitcher Brian McKenna. And before the break, we were talking about a pitcher who was throwing 102 miles an hour down in Venezuela. Tell us a little bit more about who that is and what it's like to see something like that.
I'm not sure his name. I think it's Felipe Vasquez. But he's one of the closers on the Magallanes team. But you'd be surprised. I mean, I was a little bit surprised at the amount of supremely high velocity throwers that are down here. I mean, every game you're going to see someone throwing 100, which is kind of, you wouldn't expect that. You might think that all the 100-mile-an-hour arms are already in the big leagues. Well, a lot of these guys are, maybe 3/4 of them, and then the other ones that aren't probably have a reason, like a disciplinary reason or a social one. But I mean, we have a handful of guys on our team that are routinely topping out at 98, 99. So, I mean, watching those guys throw, I mean, sometimes you're just like, wow, I can't, I don't know how they're able to do that, especially when you see how little some of these guys do in the weight room and their bodies. It really helps you understand that a lot of this is genetic. Is really, some guys are really just born with it. I mean, you can train and get yourself really good and up to a point, but I mean, to show and be able to throw like 102, I mean, that's just God given, in my opinion. I don't know if you can make yourself throw 102. It's just the exercises and conditioning and routine is gonna amplify it a lot, and make it so that you can express that movement for a long period of time. But as far as being able to achieve it, I really do. I think it's God given. I think that your workouts and conditioning just allows you to have a career doing it. You see guys that they're able to do it for a short amount of time and they get hurt and they never get back because they don't have that foundation of hard work and strength training and really understanding kind of how they were able to do it. And that's also why maybe some of these guys don't make great coaches, is because they just always picked up a ball and threw, or always picked up a bat and hit, and it kind of came naturally to them. And when you really are asking them, hey, teach me what you did, they're teaching, things that don't work. They're teaching mindsets, and they're teaching feels, and it's not, if you put it on video, that's not what they're doing. So it's interesting, but it's I think that you can, when you're that gifted, it's God given, and your workout and everything that you do outside of the field kind of just allows you to do that for a long period of time.
And how big are these guys generally? Are there any little guys that can throw that hard?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say they're little, but I mean, I'm considered relatively small for being a pitcher. I'm 6 foot, 6'1", like 195. You do see a body type that produces 100, that's for like 6'3", 6'4", 230, 240 in good shape. They're just proportionate. But then you see guys that are, really out of shape doing it as well. So there's no really one size fits all approach, but I think to optimize yourself, I mean, you'd want to be in good shape and you want to be a bigger guy. But we have there's little guys. I mean, look at Altuve, he's tiny. We have this one of the best hitters in this league, Amarista. He's like 5'4", hitting 370, 380. So I don't think that you could be tiny and do it. But as far as throwing hard, you don't see too many guys are throwing 95 plus that aren't at 5'10", 5'11". I mean, that's pushing it, but just I think more pitchers just tend to be taller. I think the scouts look for that too. So I don't know if it's more, causality, like, but you don't generally see tiny guys throwing hard. If you did, I mean, they might have an advantage.
So how about what kind of exercises do pitchers do when they are in the weight room, or is it mostly bands to get stronger or to stay more flexible or to prevent injury? What kind of exercises do you do and you see other uh, pitchers do?
Well, I've seen a whole different assortment of things. I mean, there's a couple different schools of thought when it comes to optimal training for pitchers. Some people really only want to focus on being loose and not getting tight, and then there's a lot of guys that they feel that there's a lot of strength in like this heavy strength training, almost kind of like a bodybuilder type of workout. And I think it's just having a good understanding of your body. I think that for any athlete, but especially pitchers, you need a good strength base. You should do the main movements: squat, hinge, lunge, press, pull, and have just a good strength foundation in your joints for those movements, because that's just going to help you express your overall movement capability better. But after you're maybe a certain age, you're physically developed, you have to start to try to maybe optimize for your sport and make sure that whatever you're doing in the weight room doesn't restrict you from your skill. Because I mean, at the end of the day, you're really just lifting to be better at your sport. And as long as you aren't doing anything that contradicts what you want to do out there, like you don't want to be feeling tight or hurt your back or hurt your shoulder bench pressing, then you can't throw. So it's really just understanding kind of what your goals are and then not doing anything to get in the way of that. I don't know if there's anything specific that is perfect for a pitcher, but I mean, I like to personally, I like to make sure I do a lot of single leg stuff, because baseball, but pitching obviously specifically is very single leg oriented. So I want to have good balance, a lot of single leg hinges and a lot of lunges, squats, squat jumps, For my upper body, I try to keep it light with mostly bands and lightweight stuff. When I was younger, I would crush a heavy dumbbell bench and a lot of rows and stuff like that. But I hurt my elbow a couple times when I was younger, and uh, being in this league has actually helped me change my perspective a little bit on what's optimal, especially for me, is in season. Is I've because of the situations down here, the extensive traveling and some of the accommodations that we have at the other fields, I'm not always able to get a good workout in, and I've found that my arm feels better when I'm not constantly crushing it in the weight room. If I'm not, I'm not always gripping something, and I'm not always kind of stressing my whole just nervous system and my body with those weights. And I've been able to throw down here. We played 55 games. I threw in 27 of them. I had 30 innings. And for that, I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot. That'd be, almost 75 appearances if it was, I mean, maybe more. Yeah, 75 appearances if that was in the big leagues, and that would be, you know, that would probably be one of the most appearances that anybody would have. So I think what allowed me to do that was kind of mitigating what I was doing in the weight room and just and optimizing it for myself, just keeping it light, making sure I did the least effective dose for what I needed to just feel strong and feel flexible and prepared and activated for that day. Um, I think that pitchers having a routine before they throw is probably the most important part of what they do in the weight room, making sure that they're loose and able to accept force, able to have their back T-spine rotation, overhead mobility, get some shoulder activation, some subscap stuff, some scap stuff, forearms if you want to do like some light gripping. But really, it all comes down to expressing your skill, and optimizing that is the main thing. So you want to find lifts that make you feel good, make your hips feel loose, that you feel like you want to be fast and explosive, as opposed to feeling tired and tight after you get done in the gym.
And how about the difference between a relief pitcher or closer like you, a setup guy, or a starter? Is there a difference in the routines? Is there a difference in the training and the mindset?
Oh, I think they're absolutely. I don't have experience with. Oh, I started a couple games, but I never did enough starts to really get into a routine. But I've watched the starters, and sometimes you get a little jealous of the starters as a reliever because they throw their 5 or 6 innings, and then they get 5 days off. So they're really entrenched in their routine, and they can get a good workout in. Like, and don't get me wrong, I think that the lifting, if for certain people, does optimize their bodies for throwing on the mound. Um, and so as a starter, you're able to get your lift in either the next day or 2 days later, and then couple that with having a structured throwing program to just optimize you for that fifth day. As a reliever, I have to be 100% every day. So if I throw tonight, ideally, I would like to lift tomorrow or the next day, but if I have to pitch, it's kind of about understanding like where am I putting all like my energy. If I throw here and then I lift, like I'm just kind of really leaving myself depleted for that next outing. So I try to, if I maybe throw 2 or 3 days in a row and I know I have an off day, that'll be a time when like I can lift. While a starter knows that he's going to pitch on Monday, he's going to lift on Wednesday, he's going to throw his bullpen on Thursday, and then he's going to start again on Saturday. So they're able to just really have everything very orchestrated for them. Um, and a reliever you just kind of get it in when you can. Like if you feel good that day, if you need a long toss, maybe stretch it out, but understand that maybe you might have to pitch in the game, so you have to mitigate the volume and the intensity. A starter, on his third day, when he lifts or before his bullpen, knows he can long toss and exacerbate himself because he'll have the time to recover. So for me, I mean, that's the biggest difference, is that the relievers need to be prepared every day, and the starters can really optimize their routine for that fifth day.
And you think you could teach control?
I think that control is more of a mindset and a focus that you need to have when you play catch and not trying to search for it, you know. A lot of guys they'll play catch very lax and they'll be flipping the ball.
So you played with Luis Acuna this year. Give us a scouting report on him for all the Met fans out there.
Oh, I mean, he's great. He's an electric player. Probably played 30 or 40, 30 games with him, 40 games with him. I mean, he was at shortstop a lot, but I think he's going to play second in the big leagues. But I mean, yeah, he's a great hitter, super fast. I think that he was only in this league for half of the season, and he might have been first or second in stolen bases. I mean, it was pretty much an automatic double or triple when he got on base. I mean, interestingly enough, our offense was last in the league, I believe, in batting average, slugging percentage, but we were first in the league in runs scored. And it's because we had two guys at the top of our lineup that led the league in stolen bases, and they would just turn singles into doubles, and or even triples, and they're scoring on a double from first base, scoring on a single from second pretty consistently. So you really see like at this level, like speed is not something that everybody has because there's some older guys and so if you have a guy that is explosive and is making things happen on the bases the way he does, can really be a facilitator, a spark plug for your team. So I think the Mets are in a good spot having him. They're lucky to have him. He's a great guy.
So let me ask you, you're from New York City. How did somebody from Manhattan become a baseball player? You know, growing up in Manhattan, is there any grass there to play baseball?
There's this patch of grass on 57 on 59th Street called Central Park where we played a lot of games growing up, but there's no, there's not too many places. In high school we would bus out to Brooklyn to play our games and practice every day. So I mean it's just more difficult. But I mean Manny Ramirez is from New York. It happens. There are guys. It's just, you know, luckily I had a great dad that would just take the time with me, you know, and that's really 90% of it, just 99% of it, really just having someone that'll go and play with you. You know, if you have friends, you know, you don't need grass. I mean, my dad and I would throw every day before school on the street next to the elementary school, you know. Um, but you know, it's just that consistency, you know, having someone to play with is the main thing. And luckily I did. There's a lot of, you know, I grew up in the city, but in a small enough neighborhood where we had a group of guys that we could go to the field and throw with and play with. So that's really all you need.
So you have a family business, which is a landmark in New York City. If you could tell us a little bit about that.
Well, my great, let me see, I believe my great uncle opened up a speakeasy in during Prohibition and in Greenwich Village, I believe. And my it's been kind of passed down. It changed to a bar at the end of Prohibition, and my uncle had it, and then well, my uncle had it and gave it to my great uncle had it, gave it to my dad, and you know he's had it since the early '80s or late '70s, early '80s, and it's on 14th Street. It's called McKenna's Pub. Yeah, it's just a little watering hole, you know, a little a little dive bar that's been around for almost 100 years now. And I mean, it's great. It let me work there and learn how to be a worker, you know, how to do things, you know, not be the boss's son, you know, do some hard work. So it's been great. But I'm not a big drinker, so I never go in there too much.
So getting back to baseball and some of the other players that are in the league, who should we be looking for once the MLB starts for some of the players that you played with in Venezuela that we should look for in MLB this year? And what could we expect from them, whether they're pitchers or hitters?
Well, the one guy we just talked about, Luis Sangel, he's gonna be. I think he's gonna be a future All-Star. He's got a, you know, he's young, but he's explosive. He does a lot of things really well in the field. And then another guy we had as a catcher, Carlos Navarez, he just got traded from the Yankees to the Red Sox, and he actually unfortunately had his last game with us on Monday. The Red Sox told him he's got to go up to the States and start getting ready, or at least maybe take some time off. Uh, but he's gonna be making a bid for their major league job this year. And I mean, he was an anchor for us in our lineup. You don't see too many catchers that are very good back there and then also are hitting. I mean, he hit 375 like all year for us and batting fourth. So I mean, he could help. Um, I know as a Yankee fan, you're probably sad to hear that he's not on their team going to the Red Sox, but it's a good opportunity for him. I think he'll be able. The Yankees have good catchers and they have young catchers too. So I think that he was maybe not getting a ton of opportunities there. I think he did play a little bit this year with the Yankees in the major leagues, but hopefully with the Red Sox, look for him to be a good bat. Um, we have some younger guys too. I mean, we had two guys this year that I think play A ball or double A that were both throwing 100 that showed good off speed, good command. His name is Yosabar Sanchez. I believe he's with the Tigers. And, give him a couple years. He'll be a reliever in the big leagues, I have no doubt. And then another guy, Gustavo Rodriguez, he was with us. He's sitting 98 to 100 as well. And I think he just signed a deal too. I forget what team, but these guys, they have a lot of potential, and I think that they'll they'll debut pretty soon. So look for those guys for sure.
And you've played a lot of baseball. I mean, different, all these high levels. Tell me about some of the coaches that you've had that have had a big influence on you, and what makes a good coach versus somebody that's not such a good coach. And even at these high levels, I would imagine not all the coaches are real good, but the ones that are good that you've learned from, what does it take to be a good manager, a good coach of players?
Well, I found that being a manager is a lot different than being a coach. A manager doesn't do so much of like the coaching, like he's not going to come up to you very rarely. I mean, a lot of managers are players, and you find a lot of them are actually catchers, which is funny enough. But probably a guy like that would not come up to you and give you advice on your swing or your delivery, right? But maybe more mental, the more mental approach to it. Unless the guy, unless you're his catcher and that, or you play the position that they played as a manager, and they they kind of are telling you something specific that they did, it'd be like little insights like that. But like the guys that have the biggest influence on me, especially here, are the bullpen coaches because they're the ones that you spend the most time with. I mean, they're kind of an extension of the pitching coach, and I mean our bullpen coach down here is Waldo Peraza. He's been super helpful. Not only with mindset, but he'll work with you on mechanics. He's an older guy. He's got a lot of experience pitching the big leagues for a while. He pitched in this league for a while. Um, and just and anyone a good coach is really anyone that shows that they care about your process and they care about you being successful in like an intimate way, where they're going to take time out to look at video if you want to look at video, or just have that conversation about whatever you're feeling, and um I think a good coach is knows his players, knows their temperament, their personality. He knows when is a good time to critique, when is a good time to be quiet, and when is a good time to just let somebody go out there and perform, and also to kind of just nudge them in the right directions. You see a lot of guys that maybe focused on the wrong thing or something that's retracting from their mindset and their success. And if you can kind of nudge them in the right direction, and that's without being overbearing. I think that's really what makes a good coach. At the younger levels, I think a good coach is someone that isn't looking to be too domineering with their expertise. You have to let kids express themselves and their abilities before you start trying to correct them. Guy takes one swing and you're already putting him into all these constraint drills and stuff. You don't really know what you're fixing. luckily, with the older players, they have more of an idea, so it's more of a discussion. But really, a good coach is just someone that can coach without doing too much, without being overbearing, and without being kind of really dogmatic about their own ideas. They're willing to listen and have a conversation with their athlete.
I want to thank Brian McKenna for joining me today on Open Your Eyes Radio and podcast. People want to find out more about you, Brian, and they want to follow you and learn from you. How can they do that?
I don't really have too much of a presence online, but they can feel free to reach out to me on Instagram or email me at brianmckenna213@gmail.com, or my Instagram is MC_Cannon213. If they have kids, I love to talk baseball or anything. Send me their video or just a question, and I'll be happy to answer it.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for joining me today on Open Your Eyes Radio and podcast with Dr. Kerry Gill.
Your eyes and your vision are under attack. Damaging blue light from the sun, your phone, your computer, your tablet, even light bulbs and car headlights is constantly bombarding you. The good news is our eyes actually already have a line of defense to counter the effects of blue light. This defense is made up of 3 pigments called carotenoids. MacuHealth with Micromicelle, the only supplement with the exclusive patent on all 3 macular carotenoids and Micromicelle technology.
Fitting multifocal contact lenses presents a big opportunity to meet patient needs while growing your practice. Alcon is your partner not only with our innovative portfolio, but through e-learning. Learn to enhance your multifocal strategy today with the Alcon Experience Academy.